reason that it's so important is that it is the bedrock and the foundation of everything. And even someone who says that, well, all truth is relative, or it's true for you and not for me. They say that, but
Mhm.
no one actually operates like that.
True.
Everyone presupposes objective truth, even if they think they don't. It's really easy. Just cut in front of somebody in line at the grocery store because it's true for you that that's your spot,
Yes,
and so isn't that fine?
right.
And so that's what happens is that if truth becomes completely unwound, you lose morality. You
Yeah.
can't have good and evil. No one's a liar. No one's a cheater. I mean, and then just keep kind of rippling that out. It gets to where when you push it to the extreme, is a child molester wrong? How are they evil? They're living their truth. Like so quickly, you
Right.
see the detrimental impacts.
There is no one truth for everybody. You have your truth, and I have my truth. And the greatest tool we all have is speaking our own truth. Only you can decide what's true for you. Hmm. I can't help but wonder if any of these statements are true. Today, one of our WIA team members is going to explain for us why the concept of truth is central to a life of faith. Voices of WIA is just one of the many ways that Women in Apologetics strives to educate, equip, and encourage women in Christian apologetics. If you love Voices of WIA, then I invite you to join our free email community where you'll receive apologetics resources every week and enjoy email community only benefits like exclusive digital guides and a discount to our annual conference. You can sign up today by visiting womeninapologetics.com/email community. So today's guest is Michele. She has a degree in photography from Drexel University, a graduate degree from Mount St. Mary's University, and she'll complete a Master's of Arts of Christian Apologetics from Liberty University in the end of 2025. She has worked as a competitive intelligence position to win analyst for over 15 years, which has strengthened and refined her ability to defend logically sound arguments. Her passion for apologetics caught fire when God revealed that she could use many of her analytical skills to help explain and defend the gospel, combining her love of God with her tendency toward logic. And she currently serves at her local church as an apologetics teacher for the youth group and women's ministry, as well as a teacher in the Grace Discipleship Academy. She's a curriculum developer for Women in Apologetics, and she's been part of our ministry since December 2021. Michele, thank you so much for coming to visit me today and to have this conversation. I can't wait to have it with you.
Thank you for that intro. You make me sound so much cooler than I think I really
You
am in real
you
life.
are
That was a
you
great.
are so cool. In fact, I have to say, my very first question in this conversation really doesn't have anything to do with apologetics. I am dying to know what a competitive intelligence position to win analyst is. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
It just rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? So it's legitimately, I am paid to predict the future with accuracy. In all honesty, like that's the job.
Wow.
So what it is I research, and it sounds so cool. It's like a lot of Google researches. Everyone asks if I have a clearance. I don't. But what you do is you gather a lot of information and you kind of start to put it together like a puzzle, and you notice an
Yeah.
image, and then it's a little bit of predictive analytics, a little bit of game theory, but you kind of get a sense of, hey, this customer buys like this company tends to compete like that. So therefore, we need to do X, Y, Z to win. And I have to actually come up with like the winning price of what I think competition is going to do, and then my team basically does what I tell them. But you can see where you're doing a logical defense
Yes.
without knowing conclusively what the answer is. Because if I knew what competition was doing, I did something illegal, and how easily that then carries into apologetics of you can't ever conclusively prove God exists because you need faith. And so it ends up being the best, like, training ground you can imagine for apologetics, but I didn't realize that until
Yeah.
probably 4 or 5 years ago, well, maybe a little longer at this point, when it was like a wax on, wax off moment, and God was like, "Hey, watch this." And I was like, "Oh, that's brilliant."
I
So
love that.
yeah.
I love that. You know, I hear all the time people talking about they maybe they weren't walking with God when they chose their career and then they found God later and they're like, but because I was a surgeon and now I'm a Christian, now I have the skill to be able to use in a ministry, or they found somebody on their table that needed to hear it was in their last moments and they need to hear about
Mhm.
God or whatever. But so God somehow manages to um, orchestrate these events so that the work can get done specifically for that person with that person's set of skills and that person's qualifications and background. And so it makes all the sense in the world to me because I've thought about that several times with response to worldview. Because one of the things I love about studying worldview is that if you understand how somebody's thinking, you can kind of predict how
Mm.
they're gonna vote maybe, or how their what their position is going to be on a certain issue based on their worldview. So I think that makes perfect sense that this kind of sets you up to love apologetics.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. But it was, I wish someone could have filmed, like, when God really pulled back the curtain and, like, the
Yeah.
aha moment of, like, how did I not see it? Like, I say it now and I'm like, it's so obvious. But
Yeah.
again, I've been in a career for 15 years, and it was only about 7 years ago I was like, oh yeah, you know what really parallels well? Apologetics.
That is so great. I love that. Well, thank you for clarifying that because I was wondering that secretly. And so I'm glad we got the opportunity. And I don't think I've ever in just our conversations ever asked what you do for a living. So
Yeah, no, it's
that's
been
really
nice.
cool.
Busy.
Really cool. Okay. So for most of us, truth is an obviously important concept. Because, it tends to lend itself to staying alive. You have to know the truth, what the truth is.
Yeah.
But the culture, by and large, doesn't necessarily value truth as primary, does it? I don't think our culture does that.
Well, I think they value truth, but they define it differently, because
Okay,
your feelings are truth. And so you need to be your authentic self. And so that
gotcha.
matters and that is important. And because it's your sincere feeling, of course it's true for you, right? Like the intro you gave, which I was just chuckling at as you did it. It was wonderful. But so it's valued, but it's completely misdefined. And that's the problem. So they
Okay,
value truth, but they've completely missed what it
yeah.
actually is, because they've replaced it with feelings and emotion.
Right. So the cultural idea of truth, it's not that they don't think truth as a concept is important. It's just that their cultural idea of what truth is completely different than how you and I, or how God, or how the Bible treats
Mhm.
truth, which is treated as objective. Okay, so that's really helpful, and specifically the part about it being feelings. That it took me a long time to realize that I was talking past a lot of people. It took me a long time to realize that that's where people had secular, especially secular people, had relocated, so to
Mhm.
speak, the idea of truth. It was, whatever in here, whatever I think, whatever I perceive is true. And so it took me a long time to figure out, oh, that's why we don't seem to be talking on the same page, is
Right.
because it's just they have a different idea of what it is.
Mhm.
Do you have How exactly did we get to this spot? Because it seems like to me that truth as objective is obvious and kind of plain and something that you don't necessarily want to redefine.
So, it's a great question. And there's a lot of different, you can follow the, pre-modern, postmodern, I would argue more
Yes.
post-truth kind of situation. I really think though it stems all the way back from the very, very beginning, which is we want to be God. Right? That's the big fall. That was the fall of Satan, was it's all about
Yeah.
me and a selfishness. And so if I make it about my feelings and those are always validated, is that not just a further extension of what the original sin was, which is a desire to be in control, to make it about us versus it's about God? And then one of the things we struggle with as a human being race is
Sure.
that submitting to God. Well, he's the objective benchmark. But if I remove that and I say it's now feelings based, it's now all about me, therefore I think that's kind of how we fall, is that subtle lie that Satan just keeps telling, kind of, like, did God really say, right? Or, you should do what's right for you, and
Mhm.
good ideas that when they're pushed to the extreme become very detrimental. So
Yeah.
that's my personal theories to kind of how we got here. I think it really is just that sinful nature kind of on steroids now.
Yes. Yes, I would agree with that. I think that was just as you were speaking, I remember thinking lately, I've come back to that same chapter several times in several different conversations. It all seems to happen right there in that Genesis 3 moment, that everything flip flops
Mhm.
and everything gets suddenly much poorer, obviously. Life gets harder, truth gets harder to understand. I mean, it really does seem to be that pursuing God status is kind of detrimental, not just to our what we would tend to think of as churchy things, religious things, our
Yeah.
sin and our salvation and that sort of thing, but literally to our ability to understand and comprehend truth. We It just changes everything
Yeah.
for the worse, actually. So, why is truth? Why do you think truth is such an important part of a life of faith? What do we need to know, and what do we need to remember as we are pursuing our personal relationships with the Lord?
You only gave me 30 minutes. But so I think the reason that it's so important is that it is the bedrock and the foundation of everything. And even someone who says that, well, all truth is relative, or it's true for you and not for me. They say that, but
Mhm.
no one actually operates like that.
True.
Everyone presupposes objective truth, even if they think they don't. It's really easy. Just cut in front of somebody in line at the grocery store because it's true for you that that's your spot,
Yeah.
and so isn't that
Right.
fine? And so that's what happens is that if truth becomes completely unwound, you lose morality. You
Yeah.
can't have good and evil. No one's a liar. No one's a cheater. I mean, and then just keep kind of rippling that out. It gets to where when you push it to the extreme, is a child molester wrong? How are they evil? They're living their truth. Like so quickly, you
Right.
see the detrimental impacts. And for me, what I think is so important is that God is truth. That is what he is. And so an attack on truth is an attack on God. And
Mm,
that is something that's always resonated with me is that that's one of the things that sets Christians apart is every other religion is, well, we're going to find the truth together or we're going to discover it versus our savior saying, I am the truth.
yeah.
It's such a big difference. And also without truth, you can't communicate the need for a savior because now, well, that's your truth that you're a sinner, but that's not my truth. I'm fine. I'm great. I'm going to heaven.
Mhm.
So it undermines so many things. In a
Yeah.
personal walk, though, if we lose sight of truth, it's really hard to know what are the right decisions we should make. We can get deceived because that's always what you come back to ground you. So if you lose that, you think about all of the false prophets that the Bible warns us about who will try to lead astray even the elect by staying connected to truth, we're able to push back against that. But if we lose that, we're susceptible to it. And that to me, like, it's a soapbox issue for me. That's kind of obviously why I volunteered to take the truth one. But it underpins everything because you can't really explain anything else without it. So it's so foundational.
Yeah, it really is. And I love what you had to say because I have told people when I'm teaching on this topic too that you can draw a straight line between what is true and what is moral. It's just not very far from one another. If it's true, then it's probably good. And you can also draw a straight line, obviously, between truth and reality. So suddenly, if we give up on truth, which so many people have, or they've
Mm.
redefined it, as you said earlier, then that means that morality and reality get redefined too in the process.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that you use straight line because one of the examples I use is C.S. Lewis when he says a man does not call a line crooked unless he has some idea of a straight line. That's the
Right.
truth, that's that objective standard that we need.
Right.
And if you sacrifice that, everything else is a house of cards.
Right. And I don't think people realize this because it may not be obvious. It doesn't necessarily jump off the page, but especially our secular world is absolutely demanding unity and togetherness, turn down the temperature, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
But you can't have true, in my opinion, it seems like to me, truth acts as a gatherer. If
Yeah.
we're all subject to the same truth and we're all willing to seek truth, then
Mhm.
when we arrive at the truth, we all end up at the same place.
Yeah.
That's the thing that unifies, or at least it's supposed to. It's supposed to unify us because we should all, as reasonable people, be willing to submit to the truth,
Yeah.
no matter who we are or what our religious beliefs are. We should want to submit to the truth. And if we can't do that, if truth is localized individually or located individually, then suddenly there's nothing to pull us all together.
Yeah.
And it seems odd to me that we are complaining about the conflict. Well, if we don't have a truth maker, we don't have a way to end the conflict.
Hmm.
If you've been impacted by Voices of WIA or any of the resources that we provide, would you consider partnering with us through a monthly gift? Your support helps us continue this very vital work and reach even more women with the tools that they need to stand firm in their faith. I personally support WIA because there aren't enough women's ministries that keep the focus on truth, and I'd love for you to join me by visiting womeninapologetics.com/donate.
I love that. I never thought about that, but you're absolutely right. I mean, if everyone could come into alignment with truth, you
Right.
would have then like all of the political things that are being debated about, because really what they're trying to do is legislate morality. But yet, if you just fell into alignment with truth, you wouldn't have that because we would all agree on all
Yes.
of these different things. So I think that's a
Yes.
great point. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. We really need to restore the truth. That so if anybody who's listening or watching wonders perhaps what God is calling them to do, we need to be truth speakers. We need to help people see and find the truth, both religiously speaking
Mhm.
and kind of in this general, more generalized cultural sense. We need to be truth speakers and as truth seekers and kind of energize or re-elevate this search for truth. One thing that I for sure I want to make sure we don't forget to talk about is understanding the difference between subjective truth and objective truth, because we can talk about those terms all day long, but not everybody really understands what we're referring to. So could you give us just a little crash course definition on subjective and objective truth as to what those terms mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. The easiest way to think about it is objective is based on reality. So it is something that you can prove as true or false based on reality.
Mhm.
So for example, there's a microphone in front of you, and I can determine that based on reality. It
Mhm.
can't be true for you and not for me that there's a microphone in front of you. Now,
Right.
okay, now I could say that is an ugly microphone, right? You could say this is the coolest microphone
It's a
ever.
beautiful microphone. Right.
That can be true for you and not for me because it's subjective and it's rooted in the opinion. And that's
Mhm.
all subjective truth is an opinion. So you and I can absolutely have a different opinion about whether that microphone is pretty or ugly. That's possible. And we can disagree
Yes.
and it's not in conflict. Whether or not there is one in front of you, however,
Mhm.
that is based in reality. And so it can't be true for you and not for me. And that's the difference is there are times, and this is where it does get complicated. There are times where like favorite flavor of ice cream can be true for you and not for me. So that works, but only on things based on opinion. Once you enter into reality and it's where's my place in line, how much money's in my bank account, right? Once it's grounded in reality, it's true or it's false, and there's no middle ground, and we can't have different truths.
Right, right. Yes, that is very helpful. So subjective truth basically reduces whatever is being claimed to an opinion.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that really is like the terminology is subjective truth, and I wish I could change it because it's really truth and opinion, and that's what we're talking about here, but they're
Yes.
coded as objective truth, subjective truth.
Yes. Okay. And so an objective truth would be one of those things that's true for everybody. It doesn't really matter what they think about it, what their opinion is of it. It's true for everybody, all people, all places, all times. It's just true,
Yep.
located somewhere out there and not a truth that's in here.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just want to
that's
make
that's
sure we
the big
understand that.
difference is
Yeah,
if
that
you yeah, if you can prove it based on reality, it's objective. If it's about an opinion, then it's subjective.
okay. And so I think what's really interesting is Christianity, unlike other religious, well, maybe not completely unlike them, but Christianity claims to be the objective truth. It's claiming to have a truth value
Mhm.
that's an objective
Yes,
truth. It's true for everybody, that its claims are true. Its source, God, is true. The word, the way that we understand God is true. The living word, Jesus, the work that he did on the cross is true for everyone, regardless of where they may have been born, what religion they have been may have been born into, whatever their individual outlooks are. Christianity is claiming to be a knowledge, a claim of knowledge about reality, and it's based in objective truth.
mhm,
Is that correct?
absolutely, and I would say, I mean, most religions are claiming something about truth, and they're claiming to
Sure.
know certain things, right? But the beauty of an objective truth is, since it's based in reality, you can look for evidence, so you can determine whether something is true or false, and that's where it gets. And again, when you think about all of the different evidences, that we talk about for the resurrection, for the Bible, for these events, they are grounded in history, so we can go back, and that's how we can have confidence that that these things did take place, that they
Mhm.
are true. And that's part of the beauty of apologetics, is getting to study that. But that is very important, is, and and one of the t-shirts that we have that I had to get, but you know, Jesus either rose from the grave or he didn't. It
Right.
can't be true for you and not for me. It either happened or it didn't, because it's based in reality. Now we can have a difference of opinion about that fact, but that fact in and of itself can
Mhm.
only be true or false. There is no other option. And it's either true for everybody or it's false for everybody. And that's where apologetics comes in. But that's
Sure.
where it can get misconstrued, as some people will try to treat that as subjective, but it's not, because it's based on reality.
Yeah. So it seems like to me, really, if people are struggling to figure out what they believe, what they don't believe, whether they're already claiming to be Christians or have a Christian heritage or they don't, it seems like Christianity is actually a great place to start. And for most of the people that I talk to, Christianity is the last place anybody wants to go. They pretty much give everything else a
Yeah.
try before they get to Christianity. But Christianity is the only one that can be fact checked
Yep.
quite so completely. And so if we start with Christianity and we find that Jesus really did exist in history as a human being,
Mhm.
and he really did die as a historical human event, which we all share that as our in our background and our historical background, and then he rose from the dead. Well, then that seems to make the seeking, the quest for religious truth, kind of in a nutshell, it's kind of short. It pretty much all rises, stands and falls on whether or not Jesus rose from the dead, because it's something that can be
Yeah.
checked.
Yeah, exactly. You can fact check that. And I think for those who are seeking, and I've seen this too, as you said, Christianity is kind of the last one, but
Yeah.
there's just so much evidence, and it's worth looking into. I think that's one of the there's so many beautiful things about Christianity, but what I love is, there is so much evidence to just continue to build up your faith. I mean, yes, we can be in the word every day and that strengthens our faith, but then when you get to see also, like, hey, this isn't just like a fairy tale book, right? This is actual real history, and the more archaeology we find and the more things we find, how it
Yeah.
affirms it, strengthens the faith. But the simple fact that it places itself in the crosshairs of history,
Yeah.
I mean, it is allowing for us to come along and go, okay, is it factual, is it based in reality? And then what we overwhelmingly see is, yes, it is truthfully depicting the events that took place in history.
Yes. I love that too. And I don't know about you, but I did you come to faith because of apologetics, or were you already a Christian
No,
first?
I actually didn't know what apologetics was till probably 8 years ago. I was one of the people who was like, "Why would I apologize for my faith?" Right? Like, I didn't even bother to look up the word.
Funny.
No, I came to faith, when I was 14 years old. It's a long story, but through a shooting star, I got saved. And then, later on in life, found apologetics, and then really wished I'd have known about it when I was younger, because I've always been a very logical person. And so I
Yeah.
wish I'd have had this, when I was younger, because I was one of the people who was convinced that science was going to disprove the Bible.
Oh,
And
right. Okay.
as I've studied, I'm like, oh no, actually, it affirms it.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
very
Whoops.
rewarding.
Yes. Yes, it is. I know I'm kind of like you. I came to faith basically out of a conviction of sin, nothing fancy or new there about that. But I know a lot of people have said that apologetics, if you don't come to faith through apologetics, then apologetics is kind of, oh, I don't know. It's that it should be the other way around. We should find apologetics first, and that should lead us to our faith. But I kind of think, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, but I kind of think that when you come to faith and then you figure out, oh my goodness, not only did I find the truth this way, but
Mm.
then everything else affirms that I have stumbled on the right thing, that I have not believed falsely. And that seems to be very encouraging to me. Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that for me was how it was I came to faith, and then I kind of, like, honestly just avoided the science stuff, because I knew the Bible was true. I just didn't want to get
Right.
proven wrong, even though that's not
Yeah.
possible.
I
Um,
totally get that.
you know, but I also have seen a lot of people where they're wrestling and they're struggling, and then apologetics kind of dispels the myth that uh you can't be intellectual and be a
Yes.
Christian, right? And it kind of dispels that when they realize, like, Christianity invites inquiry because it
Yeah.
placed itself in history. And I think when for some people, when they realize that, it changes the game for them of, oh, I presupposed I just had to be blind faith. And
Right.
apologetics removes that for them. So I think,
Yes.
I mean, both ways are wonderful, but I do think as a Christian, it really strengthened. I knew it to be true in my spirit, but then when I got to see the evidence, it just further solidified, okay, this is true. And I have found what we are all seeking, because I think innately we all seek truth. Everyone wants that, but
Right.
sometimes the path of to finding it is shorter or longer, some more turns than others. So
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's even interesting that some people will think that the Kalam argument for God is a good, they might come to faith that way, or they might come to faith with the the evidence for the resurrection, or pick your favorite argument. And it just goes to show you that there's good reasons in all of the arguments and all of the evidence. And so when you stand back and look at the bigger picture, we kind of have a cumulative case
right.
for Christianity being true from all of these different aspects. And when you're already a believer and you see that coming into play, you're like, that's amazing. That's amazing that I found all that truth. I stumbled onto all that truth simply because God was tugging at my heart to pay attention to him, that it was but the way I found truth was a personal,
Mm.
relationship between me and God. Something personal happened between me and God, and I found truth. And then all these other truths confirm it. I think there's really something lovely about that.
Absolutely, and I think it's also so, I mean, it's just so amazing to me that out of the love he has for us, how much evidence he left for
Yeah.
so many ways for us to come to know him, and it continually just astonishes me as I study more and more, like, how much evidence there is that he gave us,
Mhm.
that he is definitely not hiding, he's revealed himself and wants all to know him, and just everywhere you look, there
Yes.
is evidence that points to him.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the truth class that you have done, that you've put together for women in apologetics. What is there anything in particular that people need to know before they take the class?
Um, no, I don't think there's anything in particular. I will say one of the things I appreciated that we did as we were putting this together was we did not want to presuppose any Christianity.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we don't go into this presupposing that I have the Bible at my disposal all the time, right? We wanted this to be something where, like, just objectively approaching it, what is truth, right? Again, it's the foundation, and so we kind of take it from that standpoint. And obviously, there are Bible verses and there are things that are incorporated into it. But I also think what's nice about it is that it's really just taking a look at it from a very logical, objective approach. How can we know what truth is, and what are the ways we go about it? And it allows us to really take a look at this, so that, I'll even say in there, like, hey, hear me out on a few things, because maybe if you have someone in your life who's unsure, I think this is something that could be very useful to them, because again, we're not assuming that you're a believer, right? We want to make
Okay.
sure that we're really approaching it from that perspective. And I liked that because, again, this is one of the ways someone could come to faith is, as you kind of look, like you said, all this different evidence kind of helps
Yeah.
steer you towards
Yeah.
the logical conclusion of there is a God, right? Aside from that, I will say I tried to put some humor into my classes and make it fun, to try to help explain some things. But I was very excited to get to be a part of this, and I will say, God's fingerprints were all over these, because the scripts, not
Oh,
just my class, but everybody's. He really brought so many things to mind, and our editors and everyone who came together. It was such a labor of love, but it's also so apparent to me where the Holy Spirit was just guiding the pen, and the cursor, I guess, since everything was typed,
yeah.
as to how this went. So
Yeah. Oh, that sounds great. I'm really excited about it. I haven't taken it yet, but I can't wait to. How many video lessons are in the class? Do you remember?
So there's 3 in mine. Oh, yeah, oh, no, I vividly remember how many, because I was like, "How many scripts do I have to write?" But yeah, there's 3 classes, and they do kind of build on each other, and then there's some short little quizzes, after the fact, just to kinda help make sure that, the key concepts, were received. And I think they're on average, like, maybe 15 minutes or less. I know there might have been one where I ran a little long because
Okay.
wanted to get a lot in.
Right. Okay. So basically, you guys worked overtime to make sure that it was user friendly and short, not particularly burdensome, so that people would be able, pretty much anybody in any walk of life could be able to sit down, take this class, and get something from it.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
that's a perfect summary.
That is awesome. Well, Michelle, thank you so much. I'm so glad. I can tell just from your talking about that kind of spontaneously that you were perfect to teach this class. So thank you very much for coming on the show and saying hello to everybody and telling us all about yourself and helping us understand not only the concept of truth, but helping us understand the need to take this class and what a benefit it is. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. Absolutely. WIA has so many resources, articles, videos, social media posts, quick guide, courses like we just talked about, merchandise. So to see what we have available or to donate to the work that we do or to become a member of our email community. Just visit our website at womenandapologetics.com. If you have been impacted by Voices of WIA or any of the resources we provide, would you consider partnering with us through a monthly gift? Because your support helps us continue this vital work and reach even more women with the tools that they need to stand firm in their faith. You can make a difference today by visiting womenandapologetics.com/donate. So, from everyone here at the WIA team, thank you so much for joining us in today's video, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye for now.